Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. So last week, Dark Horse. This week, the sequel, Lightning's Daughter. There are 4 books in this series, which is going to push back my next book of real literature, mainly because it's a very big book and I need extra time to read it because I have an actual job. Anyways, so this picks up more or less where the other one left off. It doesn't pick up 38 seconds later. Well, okay, the prologue picks up. Actually, the prologue picks up before the last book ended, because at the end of the last book, the previous chief of the Cullinan is assassinated by this guy, Branth, who then decides to take off with the spell book, the Book of Matra, which has all of the magic that people can easily find out about in it, and takes off for parts then unknown, which we had found out at the end of the last book, because at the end of the last book, the romantic interest, Athlone of the Cahulinan, had wound up becoming chief because his father, Savaric, had been assassinated. So this book kind of starts right before the end of the last book. But the bulk of the book picks up, we'll call it a couple of weeks later. The collective government of chiefs of the various clans have agreed that since they owe Gabria their freedom and their lives, that they can't exactly declare her, have her executed for doing magic, even though everybody thinks that magic is just evil. So there's this, problem. But that having been solved, Gabria has now basically been adopted into Clan Cahulinan, and because her clan, the Corrins, have all been viciously murdered, and that's the end of that, her adoptive clan still has to deal with the fact that she impersonated a man, which, this is not a society of great equality for women. This is a society where men have their role and women have their role, and the two don't necessarily meet. So Gabria, having dressed up as a boy for that long, having pretended to be a boy, having taken warriors training, is in violation of a whole bunch of laws that kind of have nothing to do with magic and have to be dealt with by the clan. As well, of course, there's the magic issue. So they have a massive trial, and at the end of it, it is proposed by the priestess of Amara, who is one of the women with the most genuine temporal power within the clan, that Gabria should spend 6 months in the temple of Amara, and everybody, of course, goes, "Oh my god, blasphemy!" At which point the priestess says, "No, see, it's my idea, and I'm the priestess, and if I say she should be in there, then that I get to say that." Anyways, so Gabria is basically to be shunned for 6 months, which isn't going to be nearly as psychologically destructive as normal, because normally what happens in shunning is a person kind of hangs around all the time and gets to watch everybody ignore them, which is psychologically destructive. Instead, she's going to be far away and out of sight and not having to worry about it. Anyway, so for that period of several months, she rests because it's been a very, very stressful year for her, her family having been murdered and then having spent all that time training to defeat the, evil Lord Maeb, who is now dead. And, she's nearly died goodness knows how many times. It's a good couple of months to just get her head on straight, and during that time she does a certain amount of work to perfect her magic. Because while she had been given effectively a crash course by the Woman of the Marsh, who actually had an evil youth-stealing plot in mind until Athlone sort of stepped into the middle of it and killed her before she could, steal Gabria's youth and kill Gabria, because, isn't that what you do? Gabria hasn't actually had time to properly learn magic. Like I said, she just had a crash course. So she takes the time to perfect things, And when she comes back, everything abruptly kicks into high gear, because it turns out that Branth, who it seems also has the ability to wield magic, there are more people who can do magic in the clans than the clans really suspected, given that it was illegal on punishment of death, and so anybody who could usually hit it, if they had any sense at all. But Branth had taken off for the great city of Pradesh, and had gotten himself into rather a lot of trouble, and had been drugged and was turned into kind of a pet sorcerer for the Fawn, who I think is kind of a combination of a regional governor and one of those Italian city princes. Anyways, so he's wound up, unfortunately, being used by her to summon what is called a Gorthling. It's kind of a demon from hell, and the bulk of this, and so the bulk of this book is, the plot of the book is they have to go to Pradesh to get him, but when they get there, his soul has already been eaten by the demon, and then the demon heads off and tries to destroy the clans, and so they have to go after the clans. This is the book where we actually get discussion about the romance between Gabria and Athlone, who, as I said in the last book, it is implicit that they would have spent enough time together to fall in love, but it's kind of like in Harry Potter, where it's not the point. These things happen, but it's not the point of the story. But in this one, a love triangle crops up when the half-clan, half-Turek young man Syed al-Rajah, who is very clearly a ripoff of various Arab-type peoples. But Syed, he also sort of has developed a crush on Gabria, and Athlone is trying to deal with the fact that he's been raised to believe that magic is evil, and Gabria made the very sharp point to him that, yay, you want to marry me, but are you really willing to put up with the fact that I'm a sorceress, I'm not going to stop being a sorceress, and everybody's going to hate me? Are you willing to put up with this? And Athlone sort of has to actually think that one over. Whereas when Syed shows up, he's totally into the magic thing. He's going for it gangbusters, and Athlone has to do some pretty serious soul searching. The one very nice thing in all of this is that Athlone at no point blames Gabria, that in effect, like throughout this entire book, even when he's sort of whining about how Gabria is abandoning him, he is entirely aware that it's her choice. There's no hidden nice guy stuff going on in this. There's no some guy who thinks that, it's Gabria's fault she's abandoning him, when he accepts that if she doesn't care enough about him to marry him, that she shouldn't have to. He's extremely awkward about it because emotions are running high and everybody's under stress and a whole bunch of other things, but it's never a matter of him actually, being awful in that particular way. By the end of this book, they've of course defeated Branth and sent the Gorthling back from whence it came, and Gabria and Athlone are married in the last 2 paragraphs of the book. But this whole thing is a lot of soul searching. It's basically a book about soul searching. It's a book about Athlone realizing that yes, he is a magic wielder. Yes, he has the ability to do this. Yes, he should step up and take on the mantle and recover this part of their lost heritage. It's about Gabria deciding, does she really want to marry Athlone? It's about Athlone deciding, does he really want to do this? It's, about Gabria realizing that she can't, that she has to do more than just go back to being a regular woman in the clans, that she can't do that, that too much has changed. There's implicit soul searching on the part of the clan healer Piers, who is from the city of Pradesh and who fled it when his daughter was accused of murdering the last fawn of the city. And he basically spends the entire book, most of the book, agonizing over the fact that his daughter was falsely accused of effectively regicide and and executed, and it's been something that has been tearing at him for something like 20 years. And so Piers has his own soul searching. And so that's the thing about this book, is the last one was very, very wrapped up in Gabria's quest for vengeance. It was basically just all about Gabria and surviving. It was about surviving and her revenge and making it through and making it through. This is a book that's really about, okay, you've beaten the bad guys, you've survived, you've made it. Okay, now what? What happens next? Because, this is that what happens after the series finale of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when everyone asks, you're just going to have to live like regular people now, Buffy, what do you want to do? And, scene cut, but you have to ask, what are you going to do next? And so throughout this book, it's all about, what are you going to do next? It's about young Tam, who is a magic wielder that they pick up along the way, who has an ability to talk to animals and to make animals be able to talk to other magic wielders. And it's about, what does Tam want to do? Because, yes, she winds up coming with them because the woman who was caring for her before can't protect her anymore. But what does she actually want to do? She's with them because she has to be, but does she want to be? Does she want to go somewhere else? It's about whether or not Piers wants to go back to Pradesh, which was his home. It's about, it's about the clans and what they want to do next, now that magic has sort of made its way back in a way that they can't ignore it or crush it away. And that's the thing, is this whole book constantly asks the question, and now what do we do? And, so yes, it's a good adventure book. It's fun. It's not hugely lighthearted, but it's also not particularly dark. Solid adventure, magic, bit of sword play, demons and all kinds of exciting things. And of course, with magical talking horses that are immune to magic, which is, good for them, because it means that when they wind up fighting off the Gorthling, the demon thing, that the horses are able to get in the way of all of the magic, all of the bolts of magic lightning called the Trimian Force that are getting thrown around. So that's also really good. But the essence of this book is, the crisis is over. Now what? Oh, wait, there's another crisis. Because, of course, there's always something. There's always something else that comes up. People love that, to bring up that trope of how there's no happily ever after, because, after the prince and princess get married, there's always the rest of their lives. But there's still, this is that, what happens right after the happily ever after, because the last book had that. And I like that in this book. And that's all of this, and I'll come back with a third book in the series next week, so I will see you all then.